UNESCO, acronym for United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, a specialized agency of the United Nations (UN) that was outlined in the Constitution signed November 16, 1945. The Constitution, which entered into force in 1946, called for the promotion of international collaboration in education, science, and culture. The agency's permanent headquarters are in Paris, France. UNESCO's initial emphasis was on rebuilding schools, libraries, and museums that had been destroyed in Europe during the World War II. Since then, its activities have been mainly facilitative, aimed at assisting, supporting, and complementing the national efforts of member states to eliminate illiteracy and to extend free education. UNESCO also seeks to encourage the free exchange of ideas and knowledge by organizing conferences and providing clearinghouse and exchange services. As many less developed countries joined the UN beginning in the 1950s, UNESCO began to devote more resources to their problems, which included poverty, high rates of illiteracy, and underdevelopment. During the 1980s, UNESCO was criticized by the United States and other countries for its aligned anti-Western approach to culture issues and for the sustained expansion of its budget. These issues prompted the United States to withdraw from the organization in 1984, and the United Kingdom and Singapore withdrew a year later. After the election victory of the Labour Party in 1997, the United Kingdom rejoined UNESCO, and United States and Singapore followed suit in 2003 and 2007. Respectively, in 2011, UNESCO approved full membership of Palestine. Following the vote, the United States announced that it would no longer pay dues to the organization because of the congressional legislation that prohibited the financing of any UN agency that admitted Palestine as a fully member. Because of its unpaid dues, the United States lost its voting right in UNESCO in 2013. In 2017, U.S. officials, citing anti-Israel bias and the size of U.S. areas, announced that the United States would leave UNESCO again at the end of 2018. Israel withdrew from the organization at the same time. Besides its support of educational and science programs, UNESCO is also involved in efforts to protect the natural environment and humanity's common cultural heritage. For example, in the 1960s, UNESCO helped sponsor efforts to save ancient Egyptian monuments from the water of the Aswan High Dam. And in 1972, it sponsored an international agreement to establish a World Heritage List of cultural sites and natural areas that would enjoy government protection. In the 1980s, a controversial study by UNESCO International Commission for the Study of Communication Problems, headed by the Irish statesman and Nobel Peace Laureate Sean MacBride, proposed a new world information and communication order that would treat communication and freedom of information as basic human rights and seek to eliminate the gap in communication capabilities between developing and developed countries. Each member state has one vote in UNESCO's General Conference, which meets every 2 years to set the agency's budget, its program of activities, and the scale of contribution made by member states to the agencies. The 58-member executive board, which is elected by the General Conference, generally met twice each year to give advice and direction to the agency's work. The Secretariat is the agency's backbone and headed by the Director General appointed by the General Conference for a 6-year term. About 200 national commission composed of local experts serve as governmental advisory bodies in their respective states. Most work occur in special communications commission and committees convenient with expert participation. Prominent examples included the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission in 1961, the World Commission of Cultural and Development in 1992 and 1999, and the World Commission on the Ethics of Scientific Knowledge and Technology in 1998. The findings of this communication are regularly published by UNESCO.
UNESCO Policy Guidelines for Inclusion in Education. Inclusive education is a process that involves the transformation of schools in other centers of learning to cater for all children, including boys and girls, students from ethnic and linguistic minorities, rural populations, those affected by HIV and AIDS, and those with disabilities and difficulties in learning, and to provide learning opportunities for all youth and adults as well. Its aims is to eliminate exclusion that is a consequence of negative attitudes and a lack of response to diversity in race, economic status, social class, ethnicity, language, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and ability. Education takes place in many contexts, both formal and non-formal, and within families and the wider community. Consequently, inclusive education is not a marginal issue but is central to the achievement of high-quality education for all learners and the development of more inclusive societies. Inclusive education is essential to achieve social equity and is a constituent element of lifelong learning. These guidelines were discussed in a side event at the International Conference on Education in Geneva, November 2008, and recommendations from that meeting have been built into this final version. UNESCO Policy for Inclusion and Education Library. UNESCO believes that every learner matters equally. Yet, millions of people worldwide continue to be excluded from education for reasons which might include sex, gender orientation, ethnic or social origin, language, religion, nationality, economic condition, or ability. Inclusive education works to identify all barriers to education and remove them, and covers everything from curricula to pedagogy and teaching. UNESCO works in this area is firstly guided by the UNESCO Convention Against Discrimination in Education 1960, as well as Sustainable Development Goal for in the Education 2030 Framework for Action, which emphasize inclusion and equity as the foundation for quality education. That's all. Thank you. Thank you for watching.